Hi, good morning to all of you. We are going to start with the first session. We are still missing two panelists. So once you see them, please, if you are here, come. And well, basically, my name is Melissa Renau. I'm doing a PhD at Dimmons research group here at Barcelona, and I'm studying in a European project called Plus. In this first session, we are going to debate about data. As you know, currently data is being treated as an asset, as a commodity that needs to be exploited. And in front of this context, last April here in Barcelona, 50 experts signed a manifesto for data commons and data sovereignty. And we are here today to debate surrounding this manifesto and to explore actions that can be taken and then in order to foster a data commons-oriented society. So first, in this session, Antonio Calleja, here, deeply involved in the manifesto creation, he's going to present us in a 5-minute presentation, a little bit the making process of the manifesto and what is it about. And later, we will start with the debate with all the panelists, okay? So, Antonio, if you want. Thank you very much, Antonio. Do you want to come? We have the other panelists. Thank you, Nicole. So yeah, basically, thank you very much. We can start with this session. As I said before, this session is oriented towards thinking about actions that can be taken in order to foster a data commons-oriented society. And we are here in the Smart City Congress. Basically, we are seeing that cities are becoming to be something intelligent somehow. But I would like to ask, well, sorry, first of all, sorry, you have to introduce yourselves. So maybe we could go along the line, and Nicole, you could start introducing yourself.
I'm sorry, I'm late. My name is Nicole, Alix. I don't know whether you can hear me. Yeah, okay. I'm here because we have launched a project whose name is Plateforme en commun. This is in French. We are based in France. And what we are this is a project of an association, a larger association we have created to organize connections between social and solidarity economy and the commons. This is enough, maybe. It's just to introduce ourselves, right? Shall I say more? No.
So I already presented myself.
Hi, I'm Martin Howitt. I run a social enterprise called The Data Place, based in the southwest of the UK. We do open data work with institutions and organisations, try to help them be more transparent and also help people do better things with their data.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Liliana Arroyo. I'm from ESADE Business School, and I come from the Institute for Social Innovation. And our latest research has been on positive platforms that are aiming for digital empowerment of citizens that are using them. And basically, we were exploring how it's possible to empower citizens through their own personal data instead of applying the surveillance capitalism scheme.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Hanna Niemikarts from Helsinki, Finland, and I'm here, I guess, with two hats on. The other one is that I'm an individual and organizational member of the My Data Global, a legal entity of around 70 organizations and 500 individuals that is promoting the human-centric approach to personal data. And then the organization I'm representing is actually the innovation company of City of Helsinki. So we work with the smart city context, and I've been working the past 8 years to make sure that the data that is being created, whether it's being created in the city organization or through individuals, citizens, would be put to use for the common good, for the society, and also for business. So that's my approach.
Hi, good morning. My name is Martina. I'm here from Colectic. We are a small cooperative and non-profit cooperative in the Raval district in the city center of Barcelona. And I'm here because we collaborated in a project which is called Raval Data Commons, which was built and initiated and implemented by Ethicas Foundation, and we helped to do the technological platform. The idea of this project was to work on how social enterprises in the district use data and how they could have an easier and better and more sustainable use of data they produce and they use public open source data if they would share it between them. And we built a small prototype, a platform, which is based on Ethicas, to share the data between the different NGOs in the district. And we had a few sessions with the different organizations involved on how do they want to use data and what difficulties do they see in sharing data, sharing this kind of data between the different NGOs.
Thank you very much to all of you. So now I can start with the questions. As I was saying before, we are here in the Smart City Congress, and it seems that cities are going to become something intelligent. But smart cities doesn't mean wiser cities, right? So maybe we are not promoting rights that much as we should do. So I'm going to ask you how we can make cities wiser, no? How we can go from the smart city to the wiser city. Maybe you want to answer?
I have no answer. Well, I can explain how we try to find a solution to answer your question, to reply to your question. What we are doing in France, and we are linked to different other organizations doing the same things, we have created a learning community of what we call fair platforms or cooperative platforms, learning community of platforms who try to work on the devices that need to be more fair, and they're working on legal questions, they're working on data, they are working on business model and fundings. And one of our goal is to have more partnerships with the cities. Yesterday, I was with the vice mayor of the city of Paris, and they have to face challenges also. And for instance, in France, it's very complicated. This vice mayor of Paris explained me yesterday that they want to do more as a city of Paris, but they can't because the state of France is not fair enough to support the initiatives of the city. So what we have in mind is building partnerships between fair platforms, cooperative platforms, and cities. I was in New York last week. 700 people coming from everywhere in the world were there. And the vice mayor of New York has presented deliberation of the New York City in order to promote cooperative platforms within the city. So here, this is the reason why I'm here, because I really believe that we can't find solution without some alliances between cities who want to go further, even if the states, their own states, do not allow, or even if the European Union doesn't allow them to be fair as they want, as fair as they want. So I'm searching for alliances.
Well, the mission of Helsinki, city of Helsinki, is to be the most functional city in the world. So they are really aiming at being a city that provides services to its citizens in a proactive, predictive manner. And in Finland, or especially in Helsinki, the city plays a lot of roles. So it runs the education system, the healthcare, the public transit, and so forth. So there's a lot of services that are actually very much connected to everyday lives of people. And I think there, for us, if we talk about data and wise cities, we have kind of two things. Other one is the empowerment. So how do we make sure that people, whether they are citizens or whether they are the city civil servants, they have the skills enough and the awareness enough to do right choices and manage their data in a wise manner and control it, have control over it. And then on the other hand, it's ecosystems. So a smart city or wise city, it's not just the public services, it's also the third-party services from businesses. So how do we set up a kind of playground or platform that enables the service development of all players, and where the individuals can still decide who can access their data and for which purpose.
May I? Yeah. So aligned with the last two interventions, what we found in our report is that it's really, really important, this idea of generating ecosystems, that you have the, data stores that are managed and that are controlled by citizens themselves, and then probably administration, they can foster an ecosystem of applications and services based on the top of this data layer. This is really important because the critical point that is behind this idea is the differentiation between data collector and the data, and the service provider, which is something which is nowadays it's completely the two sides of the same coin. For instance, when we have a free email, we cannot differentiate between who is providing the service because, or collecting data, because all of them it's Google. But in the city perspective, that would be interesting to differentiate these two roles and generate these two layers of info. So one layer for information and another layer for service provision.
Okay, so what we've seen is that that there's a challenge to all of these things which are right in terms of building skills and also building data sharing platforms and enabling third-party organizations to play in that ecosystem. But larger players, whether they're public or private, will always resist those attempts. So there's a challenge there for national... sorry, can you hear me? Okay. Sorry, yeah, is that better? So there's a challenge here for national governments and also for local governments to stop the larger players from dominating those spaces and turning those commons into silos. And we've seen that quite a lot. As soon as you get something interesting happen, the integration with other bits of software kind of takes over, and larger organizations find ways to close those up and close those commons up into silos and take the data for themselves. So we have to be really careful about this. Something in the manifesto that was really interesting is that it mentioned the capitalist system that's driving that. It also happens in less capitalist systems where there are authoritarian regimes, and so those are dangers as well that we have to watch out for.
I would like to introduce a more lower level and more bottom-up focus in this. I think it's also important to think and to work about what do people in our community, in our NGOs, in our neighborhood really know about what data is collected about them, what knowledge is collected about them, who's collecting and who's using it in what way. What we found in working with NGOs is a huge lack of knowledge, lack of understanding about what kind of data is collected about even an NGO. And on the other hand, the NGOs are also writing their project proposals and writing their reports. They do collect and use data. And often they are not really aware where the ethical limitations or where there are legal limitations even on how to use this kind of data. So I think there is an important work to do on fostering knowledge in the community about how we should be enabled to be in control of our own data.
Thank you very much. So let's see, let's move a little bit. So we are saying that more or less we have the alternatives. We can start building alternatives, but from this city perspective side, so from the public administration, what has to be done in this regard, and how we have to convince city councils that they have to engage a data commons oriented society. Maybe we have to. Nicole, you want to say something? Do you want?
I think we shouldn't stay alone. We are alone. We come here every year, and we don't talk to each other from one conference to another one. I forgot your name. Liliana talked about the ecosystem. We really have to build an ecosystem between us. and to find the means to stay together in order to push the pressure. You know, we have to build our own ecosystem not to be alone, and because you can't expect from either platforms by themselves to be fair, because it's impossible to be as fair as we want in a commercial environment. Would put a pressure on this platform coop or fair platform and whatever. So for me, the question is not how we can convince each city to do more. It's how we can build our own network in order to put the pressure, in order to do something all together. First of all, to help each other, and afterwards to go to the institutions and to try to build also, or to help cities to build their own networks, or why not a fair sharing city network or whatever. You know, for me, this is the way to go through. Not stopping talking together only in conferences. We have to work.
Yeah, actually, for me, when I was reading the manifesto, one thing that I started to wonder is that can you jump directly to this data commons, or is the my data approach where I can first choose that, okay, I want to, in this case, put the data to the commons as anonymous data, or I want to share it only with my doctor or my personal carbon footprint calculator, whatever. So how do you see that? Because it's not very clear in the manifesto what are the organizational roles and what are kind of the mechanisms there in place for us to, for certain data, also go to the commons model. Because with the my data approach, you have this kind of from formal rights to actionable rights, so from GDPR to actual control over your data, and then from data privacy to data empowerment, where I maintain my control, and then the whole ecosystem, business ecosystem side. So how do you see the business, all these aspects in the data commons approach? Sorry, I'm asking now a question.
Okay, so I have a question, because more or less to be able to speak all of you, for Martin. In the data place, you say that basically you're talking about open data on demand. And I was really interested in this sentence. And maybe you could explain us what does it mean exactly, and also what kind of paper can have organizations such as My Data Place towards promoting these kind of alternatives and towards city councils.
Okay, so that phrase is coming from there's like an automated workflow that we have for building open data portals and to help organizations like get open data infrastructure out there very quickly and very cheaply. I think when we started looking at when we started thinking about the previous question, and also that we've worked with Plymouth City Council, who have made enormous attempts to involve businesses and individuals with their open data and with the data about the places where they live. There are projects at the moment in parks where they're putting footfall sensors into parks, anonymized ones, and then they're building a data pipeline straight away to release that onto their open data portal. So there's no intermediaries between the council's data and the people that are creating the data and the final open data set. We're trying to take as much of the friction out of that process as possible. So that's what we mean by that kind of comment.
Yeah, it sounds very familiar what we've done now with air quality crowdsourcing. And I think all these examples are more about like crowdsourcing data. But then my question still remains like portability of my social media data and all that. So how does this data commons take? Is it completely separate from that, or how do you see it?
So there may be a cultural thing here. I'm not sure in the UK whether people care very much, or whether they know enough to care enough. And there's a real education and learning thing there that we grapple with a bit. I don't know if that's different in your experiences.
I would just like to mention that beyond the technical aspects or the portability things, at least here in Spain, we or in Catalonia, we also have a trust problem. So we don't believe in the administration managing data, even if it's open, even if it's under a data commons scheme. So I think that maybe tapping into your first question, so how can cities can get wiser? I think that it's also like building trust in the administration in terms of their ability to perform data management of citizens, like personal information, yes.
I think the point of awareness raising is very much what we are doing on Data Commons. And what we saw in working with the NGOs, it confirms what you just said. There's a huge mistrust in the public administration. So when you use public data from the Statistics Institute, for example, there's always questions about methodology, what was used to collect this data, and viability of this kind of information and data you use. On the other hand, what we also see with working with NGOs who collect their own data, they often, if you discuss with them about what do you think about sharing what data you have collected with your neighboring NGO, which is working maybe in a different or connected field, and together you could find ideas for new projects. You could identify new needs in your district, in your neighborhood to work on. And then you see that this mistrust they have in the public administration is just the same kind of mistrust to their own neighbors working in the same field, working as a social NGO. So I think trust is a very important thing when we're discussing data.
Okay, so now I would like you to think about the partnerships that we were talking before, right? Because it seems like it's very interesting to link the sharing economy, the social initiatives with the public administration. So which paper we can play here with as civil society and partnerships with different NGOs in order to increase this trust towards data, open data, and seeing it.
I want to be more, maybe if you allow me to be more concrete. Okay. When I came here, I didn't know exactly what was the subject. I didn't. My neighbor showed me the manifesto. You know, for me, we didn't. We have been working on the platform co-op for 2 years. We have been working on Commons and the link with social and solidarity economy. We have come here at least 3 times. I've met Henrik. She came to Paris and afterwards. We don't have anything to share what we are doing. This is a pity, you know. We should try to work differently. We should try to have more links all together in order to be able to share what we are doing. First of all, we have adopted a declaration during our forum in Paris. I brought this declaration in Brussels. We didn't have any time to discuss. I went to New York, and now there will be a conference in Berlin next year about what is platform co-op. I won't be too long, right? Sorry. So why don't we try to join our forces, first of all, in order to share what we are doing, in order to understand what we are doing, because we are not all the same, right? We are not in Sweden, we are not in the UK, but there was a lot of people coming from the UK in New York. And so try to build, I don't know what, a European project, whatever, you know, not only on research, also with the practitioners, also with the platforms. We have a learning community of 20 fair platform corps. They have been working all together on data, on interoperability. We have launched a project that, what is the name? There's so many things, I'm too old, They are building. So it's a working group of interoperability. So we have built a reciprocity license, copyright. Our friends from CopCycle have built copyleft in order to enable people here building here in Barcelona, building communities or platforms for these persons working in delivery afterwards. So why don't we share this type of tools all together, first of all? And why don't we try the means to establish partnerships, of course, with our different cities, but also to push the pressure on cities. So for my claim here, this is the reason why I came here, is try to find another way to work together, not the research on one part and the practitioners on the other part, and to share more. You are doing a lot, it's not a critical. I know you are doing a lot, but and at the end, yes, I know this is a reason why, this is a reason why. But maybe we should try to find other, not like that, because it's very technical, it's very political, it's very cultural. So we need time. So please, this is my.
Yes, very much agree with it, that it's time to put these things, the principles, into action and find the things what we agree with, what we agree on, and instead of working on our separate declarations. And that's something we do a lot in Helsinki. We've been piloting consent management of these air quality sensor data. We are busy doing IoT sensor in homes, in smart homes, the consent management for that, so you can kind of give consent for companies utilizing your temperature and humidity and energy consumption data, for example. And it would be great to bring into those pilots the data commons approach, so which parts of that data could actually contribute to the commons and which are actually kept as personal data that are used by only companies or third parties or research institutes. So it would be nice to have the whole ecosystem around it. So I very much agree with that.
Yes, I very much agree with that too. I suppose my only concern is that some areas are further forward than others, and we need to make sure that we can bring the areas that are lagging behind along with us, and don't just like steam ahead. I mean, Barcelona's got a very thriving scene, and London has got a very big scene, but places like the southwest of the UK where I'm based, not so much. And I think we've always struggled to keep up with some of the things that have been going on in other areas. And when I get in touch with, I look at things like the Decode project, and I think I really want us to be able to engage with that. We don't always have the resources to do it, and so there's a bit of a challenge in that area too.
This reminds me about the data commons partnership, right, and networks. So maybe we could start thinking about wider network and of different organizations, because, for example, CopCycle, the main value that it has is that it's a partnership, right? There are several initiatives very different between all of them, collaborating together at the end, and they are sharing resources thanks to technology, but also because they really want to do it, right? And if you really get into these projects, you see that they are really completely different. Some of them just have one person working there. Others have a lot of people, and they have very different missions, but they have something in common, right? So maybe we could start thinking about a wider network in order to share some resources. Maybe in Helsinki you have, no? What do you think about this, and what kind of actors do we want in this partnership, in these networks, and how we can foster them?
Yeah, very pertinent question, I think. But I also I mean, Antonio has said this before. I think that it's data commons for what and partnership for what. Because I think that we have this, I mean, this pulls into all the time speak about partnerships, but what are we going to do together? So probably if we could move to a mindset which is a challenge-based innovation. So, okay, me as a city council or we as a civic organization or whatever, we identify a challenge that we have and we can assume or we want to test if we can address this challenge using data and under a data commons approach. And then based on this challenge, then who are the actors that want to contribute to this? So basically, because I think that it's important that we bring some meaning to the scene, because otherwise it's like partnering for the sake of partnering. It cannot be the only purpose. So challenge-based innovation approaches are interesting.
My name is Pekka. May I make a suggestion for what could be the purpose? I think that the purpose of data commons is to change the economy. And I believe that it can actually do it because data is structurally different from the other goods. It's an anti-rival good. It's very different. So that's what I propose.
Yeah, sure. And I think that we all agree in that. And we want to break data silos and we want to fight surveillance capitalism, so on and so forth. But that's like the means. This is how are we envisioning the data economy, or how are we envisioning the value of data for a common good? Definitely. Yeah, but on the top of that, for this specific reason, why are we building a partnership? You know, this is why I think that it's, I mean, based that we agree on the fundamentals of it, what else are we aspiring to? What are we going to, go deeper, exactly, yeah.
I have a suggestion. Yeah, I agree. I completely agree. We have to know more about what goals we are aiming at. But my feeling is that we have a global impression, right? But we don't know exactly what the answer is. So my concrete proposals is, why don't we put together, why don't we share the different charters, declarations, and whatever we have already built in our different contexts, in our different environments, in order to understand, with the help of people like Dimmons, like researchers and practitioners, to understand what we are looking at, what we are aiming at, in order to help ourselves and in order to be more, I don't know why, it would be easier, you know, if we could start from what we have already done in order to understand more about the goals. This is my concrete proposal is share what we have already written on data commons.
I agree with this very concrete approach. So, for example, Helsinki and many other cities have a target of being climate neutral at some point. We need a lot of data about people's mobility patterns, about their energy consumption patterns, about even what they consume and eat and so forth. And we can use that data for the individual to power them to make a behavior change and guide them to that. We can use it as a city to better understand the whole how the systemic change can be driven, and it can be a business opportunity for companies, it can be a research opportunity for research institutions and so forth. And I think there's a clear interest where this data can serve both all levels and all parties. And I think that's something that when you are talking about ecosystems, you should always have a motivation for all players to kind of play the game and change it. And I think we should start from the use case perspective and advance on it, because if we try to change the whole system at once, it just it's not clear for the individual why they should share the data. They don't care, they are not aware enough, so there has to be somehow a motivation there as well as for the city and for the businesses to change and bring their data into the game.
Yeah, connecting to that, I would appreciate a lot on sharing strategies about awareness raising. I think that's a very important topic, just thinking about it. Is anybody doing awareness raising in schools, working with teachers, with school kids? We have school kids in public schools using Gmail accounts. So is there any awareness raising in this field already done? What could we learn from that? What experiences exist? And on the other hand, we could share some experiences we are doing here. So we would be very much interested in that. Great.
We'd be interested in co-developing a kind of, not a syllabus, but a set of, what's a set of basic skills that people need in order to make informed decisions about what's happening with the data around them? What's a baseline set of skills we'd like everyone to have, like a literacy standard? That would be something we'd be definitely interested in helping develop with others.
We are testing and have been working and collaborating with a very nice, it's a serious game. It's called Data Control Wars, and it's about playing a role-playing games with groups of people and seeing how we act when we are role-playing and we are acting in a group, for example, as the public administration. And we want to gain power through data, or if we are acting as a capitalist economy, or if we are acting as organized NGOs and people in the community, or just as users who are providing data without even knowing it.
I just want to add one point. We should also share the difficulties. And because sometimes we don't exactly know what to do, right? And I don't know anything about Decidim except what I have learned here from hearing. But I've heard, before I came here, I've heard that there has been some questions about the open source of Decidim last summer or some months before. Lionel Morel told me something about that. There was some. Is it true? Okay, so for us, okay, you are the so for us, I have heard, I don't know anything, but I've heard that Decidim is presented in France as, the solution which could be adopted by cities and whatever. And at the same time, Lionel Morel, who is now in charge of open science in our big research national center, told me that there have been some questions about Decidim some months ago. And he told me maybe the solution is not the right one. I don't know anything, but my proposal is also to discuss about the questions, because we don't have any right solution, a good solution. We have to take into consideration all the environment and whatever. So this is my second proposal. Discuss about also the difficulties.
Well, just like to still promote, somebody mentioned sharing the challenges. So in the My Data Global, there's been in the cities working group, they did a series of workshops on SWOT analysis of My Data roadmap for cities. So I think that might be something interesting for those who work with cities to look at. And yeah, and then for the training and skills, very much interested in sharing them and taking them and scaling them. But there again, the societal context can be so different. I think in Finland, there's still quite big trust towards the public administration, and that's not the case in other cities necessarily.
I have also proposal. Sometimes in France, we consider that as far as data is concerned, we are in the same situation as labor forces were at the beginning of the 19th century. We have to negotiate collectively about our data, because the way the things are considered now is that they are all personal data, and we are all personally concerned. We are all also collectively concerned. So I propose to also talk about collective negotiation about data. Okay, and this is a global negotiations. It's very complicated, but first of all, we could maybe consider the question on the issue on the European level. But it doesn't. We also try to push the idea of data cooperatives, but you know, the big institutions are not interested because they are all working on, how do you say in English, RGPD, you know, the GDPR. They consider that they have now to work on GDPR, so collective data they are not concerned of. But we are concerned.
Okay, so we want to do this participative, so you...
I'm sorry for continuing my point, but I think it relates directly to that, what you just said. I believe that data can't be owned. So if we think about the concept of ownership, that is just the wrong model for data. And therefore, data commons are a very good starting point for changing the economy. And in general, there are lots of goods that can't be efficiently owned, including many that are in the IPR. And it actually goes deeper. It also goes that there are no efficient ways for compensating for data with money. So basically, when you go deep into the economics of data, you notice that the concepts of ownership and money are not appropriate. And therefore, I say that the purpose of data commons, in a sense, is to change the economy, because it requires you to change new structures in addition to ownership and money.
So I agree with quite a lot of that, because when data is created, it's never created on its own. It's co-created with other people. So even my health data, you know, my heart rate is being monitored now, but it's not me that's monitoring it. Someone else is monitoring it. It's sitting on someone else's server. They've got a claim to it as well as me. What we really need is rights. So we need to have the ability to assert control over that data in some ways. And that's a power negotiation, but I'm very interested because it's the second time you've mentioned changing the economy, but what do you want to change it into? And are we sure that it's going to be more functional than the thing that we've got at the moment? Do you want to answer that?
Well, if we think what the economy is really about, it's moving the battle from the battlefield to the marketplace. So in the end, it's about regulating power. And if we are changing the economy, we are changing the way that we are regulating power in our society. And now if we think about the current economy, it's very much built around the concept of competition. So the main thing about our current economy is competition, because it's about rival products. It's about products that can't be shared. And because they can't be shared, you have to compete about them. They are scarce. And now if we think about data and many other products, they actually can be shared. They are not scarce. And for managing that kind of the products, you actually want to have cooperation instead of competition. And that's the major flaw in our current economic system, that it's geared towards competition. It forces us to compete against each other instead of collaborating more. And with data, we have a chance of changing the economy into a more collaborative one. How exactly? Of course, I don't know. If I knew, maybe I would have already written another manifesto, but I think that's something that we need to work on.
Just to build more things on the discussion, besides what you're saying and what we're discussing here now, I think that Antonio before mentioned like a new role, which are the data trusts, and this idea that collectively we could rely on fiduciaries that can help us maybe not to own our data, but to be sovereign about our data, which is to preserve our right to decide on what data needs to be used and for what purpose and under which conditions and so on and so forth. So maybe, and this is connecting these ideas that are flowing around this morning, which are partnerships, ecosystems, and probably this idea of putting first data trust, because otherwise we are leaving all as a burden to individuals or as a burden to the city council. Like, probably we need some new intermediaries, like these models for fiduciary use of data.
Yeah, just to bring it maybe to pragmatic, like things that we can now advance with. I think it's really, it's not about ownership, it's about rights and a way of mechanisms for controlling what can be done with your data. And I still don't see it so, I mean, there's a lot of personal data that in all cases you don't necessarily want to put into data commons. And I think that's where you need to have mechanisms. And there you need portability, transparency, all these kind of, part of it it's legal, part of it it's technical. But the solutions need to be built, and I think we are now in the moment when we can start trying out these things and move from the manifestos to like action.
Okay, so well, it's been really interesting. So basically, what kind of rights do you think? How we can really get deeper into this, right? Into this debate, because in the manifesto we are talking about it. We are talking also about actions, about things that can be done. But if you want, we can bring the debate to about the rights and also, I know you have something to say about it. Why do we have to really, for example, here we have city representatives, right? And they are saying maybe this as okay, what have to be done from the city administration? Why do we have to start giving our data as open data? Maybe they are in another step. So maybe we can start thinking about it like, okay, why we have to push these rights? Why we have to ask for them? And I don't know, for example, Liliana, you in your report you talk about the Estonian e-government, so maybe they can learn something about this experience.
Yeah. Well, basically, the Estonian government, what has been pushing forward, it's like a layer for interoperability, basically, which means that they are building like a more effective bureaucracy. Like if you have provided some information to the government once you want to fill another form, you don't need to provide this information that was already given at some point. So basically, it's not that the data is stored centralized in a centralized way, but it's in an interoperable. So it's to some extent it's more efficient, and then they are offering a wide range of options for citizenship, like I would say like processes related to ID or to e-receipts and some other aspects of health assistance. So this is a good example. And regarding to this idea of trust that we were saying at the beginning, as this is like a governmental decision, so everyone is obliged to use this system, regardless, this is like compulsory. They are trying to do it in a sensitive way, and they are trying to create trust. So they are using a lot of transparency to generate also alphabetization to citizens on why this is a very good approach on doing that. So yes, but I also think that in Finland you are also making good progress. I mean, at the governmental level, in terms of e-government. So and I know there's like an institute of Nordic. I don't know. I don't remember the partnership, but I can check for it, and afterwards I can tell you. But it's like a partnership between the government of Estonia and the government of Finland. So they are basically building together technology, but also sharing experiences, lessons learned, and so on and so forth. So yeah, we can look towards them. Yeah.
Okay, I agree, and just propose another point is controlling the right to control the creation of value, the value we have created with our data is used. Because we are talking about cities, but cities are also working with commercial entities, right? To build their infrastructure, to manage the infrastructure, to do whatever. And we don't know how our data are used by these commercial entities. And we don't know, and so I think we should put forward the right to control the use of our data, not only by cities, but the way they have partnerships or public-private partnerships with entities which are using our data. I just want to add one point. From my own experience, I'm coming from social economy. I'm not coming from the Commons, but I'm trying to, well, my organization is trying to build connections between, you know, social economy and the Commons. And one point which I consider which has not been addressed at that stage is the link between free software or open source and social economy. The way we decide to be very open, and as we sometimes tell now, you know, the digital commons are all becoming capitalist data, capitalist commons. They are all bought by capitalists. So some people coming from free software consider that putting property on licenses and data, this is a pity because we can't share anymore. But if we don't do anything, we are condemned to be, you know, used by people who make money from what we are doing. So this is a real challenge. And I don't know. I have no answer. We have a meeting on next Friday on this point. And this is a type of thing we would like to share also, because we are not proud of what we are thinking of, but we have at least some issues, and this is another thing we would like to share. What are you thinking of that?
Okay. So well, that's really interesting. I don't have the answer neither. Do you want? He has a partial answer, so let's hear it.
So I think a partial answer is looking at the work by Elizabeth Ostrom, who is about Commons and right now. So you know it already. Okay.
Okay. So we're almost finishing the session. So we would like to open apart from your interventions that are really interesting. If anyone has an answer, has a question, and anyone wants to intervene now, maybe it's the moment.
Well, firstly, thank you for the debate, because it's really interesting with different approaches. Trying to deep in what Alix is trying to think is how the social and solidarity economy organizations can adopt data commons. We have a big experience here in Barcelona, because there are a lot of cooperative, traditional cooperative, and some new cooperative that are trying to use the CDIM as the way that they are taking the decisions in order to give another layer. And I think this is the way that could improve the connection with this type of organizations with the digital environment. Because, so, as you know, when you speak with a traditional cooperative, or even in a new types of cooperative nowadays, it's quite difficult to engage them with this idea of data commons. And I think the main thing of a cooperative is its governance. And in this vision, it's easier to promote them the use of the CDIM, and then to engage them with the idea of data commons. You have a big experience here in Barcelona adopting this. Maybe you can deep in this.
I just want to add, there is a question of generation, that's right? Because maybe I'm wrong, but people of my age are leaders in cooperative sector, right? Or mutualist insurance society and whatever. And sometimes when you are not intuitive, like, sometimes you don't understand. You simply don't understand what we are talking about. And last week, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I didn't hear really what he said. But the vice president of La Lega, Italian cooperative, told in the New York conference that he didn't see why the cooperative couldn't sell the data of their members, of its members. I'm more or less sure that this is what he said, and he wanted to attack the help me, RGPD, GDPR, because so maybe I'm wrong, but maybe he told that it doesn't make any difference between the data, the cooperative data, and the data of the members. And, when we launched our own project, La Coop de Communs, it's a non-profit organization, small organization, and whatever, and we have working groups. And the first working group told me, who are to whom the production of this working group belongs to? From someone like me, I said, what are they talking about? Because I've always been working in non-profit organization, or I've been also working in a cooperative bank. I've never thought about who is the owner of my own work. Never thought about that. And I protested. I said, well, are you crazy? What are you talking about? And this is what the beginning of what we have done, and we have named copyright, because I didn't want to have a community which take care of the network, we produces data and whatever, and that could be captured by anyone. So I wanted to go towards a social economy system, or at least limited profit community. And this was the beginning. And really, I think maybe this is, you were talking about the little, the children in the schools, but also people like me, from my age, it's very, very complicated to understand what we are talking about. I think, maybe I'm wrong.
Okay, so if anyone has anything else to say, we will continue this discussion later. Just on a small one, because we are out of time.
So if you and we want to work together, I think it's now time to affect Horizon Europe program and to try to carve out something there.
Okay, so thank you very much to all of you. We have now a workshop towards the manifesto also. We were going to with Antonio Calleja and myself. So, well, thank you very much. Okay, so don't leave, because we are going now to do a workshop about the manifesto. You don't hear me? Where is it? Here. We are going. Yeah, we are going to change and move the tables. Yeah.